Have you ever wondered if you're really cut out for this work? If you're smart enough, good enough, or if everyone else has it figured out while you're still feeling like an imposter and flailing about? That's the part that nobody talks about, and it's where this series begins. Hello and welcome to Inside Social Work. I'm your host, Marie Vakakis, accredited mental health social worker, couple and family therapist. Welcome to the podcast that talks about all things social work and mental health, but behind the scenes. I'm all about having honest conversations, talking about real life practice, big feelings, tough topics, lifelong learning, and those memories that stay with us. Whether you're working in community schools, private practice, or somewhere in between, I hope that this is a space that can be really supportive to you. My guests and I will talk about what it's really like to do this work, grief, growth, the messiness, and all the things along the way. And I hope you feel more connected, more grounded, and perhaps a little inspired in your journey. When I first started out in private practice in particular, I had all of those feelings of imposter syndrome pop right back up. And it wasn't just in private practice. They've been there on and off throughout my career from my very first real social work job. And I'm sure I'm not alone. And as I've done all of this work to intentionally be a little bit more vulnerable and share a little bit more, both on the podcast and behind the scenes, I've started connecting with other people more and more who were happy to share some of their stories. And I was lucky enough to build a lovely relationship, collaboration, friendship with Ashton Hayes. Now, Ashton is the host of the Becoming an AMHSW, the podcast, and we have created a little collaboration for you. We have 10 episodes, so one a day will go out over a 2-week period, and we'll explore some of these things a little more. We talk about what it actually takes to become an accredited mental health social worker, not the checklist version, but the messy, honest version, and the stuff that we don't talk about as easily or as often, self-doubt, money stories, and the constant worry or anxiety that comes with letting people down. In this series, you'll hear the stories of two people, myself, Marie, and Ashton, how we started, the twists and turns in our career, and what it has meant to become AMHSWs. We talk about vulnerability, business, the taboo topic of money, and the truth about the work that goes behind the scenes in running a private practice where a lot of AMHSWs end up working in. It's not a polished pathway. It's not a guidebook. It's us sharing our lived experience. We had some ideas of what we were going to talk about, and each episode took a bit of a mind of its own. We talk about that feeling of imposter syndrome, some of our own insecurities and self-doubts. I know for me, I felt not smart enough. I had a funny surname. How could I ever do podcasting with a funny, strange surname? I felt that I wasn't a very good writer, and it's really held me back from publishing content in written form. There's all of these things that just there sitting in my brain that I find it really hard to explore sometimes. And I wanted to share that. I wanted to share the struggle and normalize it. I don't have everything figured out. And talking about it with someone, journaling about it, there's a number of ways to start to demystify some of that and understand it a bit more. What's helped me most is knowing that I'm not alone in that. Other people experience it too. So I was hoping by sharing some of my struggles and where I'm at the moment, that someone else out there might find a little bit of comfort in any bit of that they find relatable, to know that they're not alone. We talk a little bit in this series about how to become an AMHSW, the actual tick box version. So what credentials you need, what kind of experience you need. And I know this is a really tricky topic for some people. They are very, very experienced, fantastic social workers and find it very difficult to apply for AMHSW status because their job doesn't quite fit into that criteria of a counselling role based on those psychological interventions. And so we talk a little bit about that and some things that you might be able to look for in your role or in future roles if that's the pathway you want to take. We talk about how we met, funny enough, and I really wanted to include that in the episode because our work can be quite lonely. We can be very social in many ways, often working in frontline work with a lot of people and maybe not connecting with other social workers or mentors, mentees. And so I am a huge advocate for networking. Reach out to people, go for coffee, have virtual catch-ups, build a network of people that you can lean on, that you can brainstorm ideas with, and you can do that in so many ways. So I met Ashton through, I think, her Facebook group, and then I contacted her on LinkedIn, and now several years later, we are very good friends. We've done this collaboration together, one of, I hope, many podcast collaborations, and we have a fantastic time catching up and talking about everything, not just social work and not just private practice. We both share a little bit about our career paths and our squiggly careers, how we got to where we got to, and the different parts of our businesses. So I run the Therapy Hub, I have the podcast This Complex Life, and this podcast Inside Social Work. So there are a number of different things that I'm doing that have evolved over time. And Ashton has her own story as well. And I think it'll be really interesting to see the different roles you can do, the different routes you can take. And we started off in very different places. We've ended up with a lot of overlap, and it doesn't have to look any particular way. So I'm hoping that those conversations around career pathway give you a few ideas of what's possible, or maybe you're looking at our stories and you're like, absolutely not, definitely not for me. That's totally fine as well. And then we have a whole week where we talk about money. Yes, that big taboo that you're not supposed to talk about, money. We talk about the behind the scenes, I guess, stress or chaos. It can be a little bit of both, about running a private practice, the unforeseen expenses that can be excruciating and scary. And the big theme that we sort of looked at is around our money stories, our money beliefs, what we think we should charge, what we think we should do, how we're scared to talk about money. And we talk about some really good resources and some ways that we've navigated those stories for ourselves. And everything from the client, charging a client and implementing a cancellation policy, to having an emergency fund, managing your finances and thinking about your future in terms of your financial security and stability, and what that means for the work that you do day to day. Because there's so much crap out there about us having to do the work we love because of the kindness of our hearts, and we should do it because we care. And I think we should care and get paid accordingly, that our skills and expertise and the value we provide should be adequately remunerated. And I know that people have different opinions of those, and I'd love to hear them. I'd love to start a dialogue. This is by no means the end of the conversation. We're just getting started, and we hope that this will generate a lot of discussion, and people can reach out to us on the various ways that you engage with us on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook. And if you've got some questions that you want us to talk about, or for either person to talk about on their podcast, reach out. I know I love hearing from people. I love getting your listener questions, and I love your sort of mailbag questions. So please send as many of those to me as you can. I absolutely love it. So that's a bit of a insight into what's to come next week. Check out the series. So this series with Ashton is all about sharing our stories. Our stories of becoming AMHSWs, the things behind the scenes, money stories, the business side, all of those messy parts that sometimes get left out. And like I mentioned earlier, this vulnerability has been a bit of a theme recently. I've been trying to do more authentic, more vulnerable conversations on the podcast. Even the solo episodes, you might have seen one a few months ago around talking about losing a client to suicide. And that was a terrifying episode to record. And I did it anyway. I'm trying to put out there a little bit more of that. This is what it's like. This is my experience. This is what it can be like for some people. Let's just put it out there and start a conversation. So Ashton and I really do go deep into some of these topics. We want to explain some of the nuance and have them as a dialogue. They weren't scripted. We had some ideas of what we would cover in each episode, and it just went from there. So enjoy. Ashton and I really wanted to put our experiences on the table and be open about what things have been like for us and where things are at now. And if you want to hear more, reach out. We might do another collab. So I hope you enjoy this collaboration with Ashton Hayes from the Becoming an AMHSW podcast in collaboration with me, Marie Vakakis, on the Inside Social Work podcast. Are you feeling stuck in your social work career, wondering if you're even on the right path? You're not alone, and that's why I created the Career Clarity Challenge. In just 5 days, you'll reflect on your values, discover your strengths, create a simple action plan, and learn how to use supervision as a real tool for growth. By the end of this challenge, you'll feel clearer about what matters, more confident in your strengths, and ready to take your next step. Sign up today. It's free, it's practical, and it could be the reset you've been waiting for. Just head to the show notes to join the Career Clarity Challenge now.